Hi everyone, it's Caroline here again. I'm making a video around the structure of what we're going to be learning in our quest for self-discovery. And what I had spoken about before was, how do we know that we're called to this? And really, I think a sign that we've been called to this. And it's very important as well, I would say, as a disclaimer, to only venture into this quest when you feel ready, because it is absolutely and undeniably life-changing. And it is an arduous quest. It is difficult. It is challenging. It will pull up every shadow that you have tried to hide. It will completely, I suppose it's like, that they talk about darkness to light, but what does that mean? That really means bringing light into the areas that you have wanted to keep dark. It's happened in my own life, and it continues to happen, where you feel comfortable, that feeling of being comfortable and not actually wanting to change, and being nice and cozy where you are, and you're thinking that you can stay there. And actually, life is all about growth. The whole reason why we're here. I have to laugh when people talk about spirituality, because the whole of life is a spiritual experience. It is a evolving garden of growth, and it's not something that you can set aside. Where in traditional times, in Ireland especially, we would go to Sunday mass, and think everything else is fine, and I used to think that was funny as a child. I used to really laugh at it, because I used to say to myself, what is all of this whole community seems to be controlled by this, what we call religion, that we go to mass on a Sunday, but then they never practiced what was taught on that in the Sunday. And then I thought, well, if you're not going to practice it, why bother? I just give it up altogether. And I couldn't understand, the logic behind that. It's either you're in or you're out, and so I suppose the funny thing about it was that really, without realizing that life is actually, it's all spiritual. It's all a journey of discovery, and it's a school. It's not this realm, this material realm, is where we learn, where we progress, where life pushes the boundaries, and where we're always going to be pushed. And it's designed that way. It's designed for growth. It's designed for renewal. It's designed for iteration after iteration. It's designed to be pushing you beyond your boundaries, and really it's really looking to unite. It's looking to know itself as itself. Life is wanting to kind of spread itself out and come back to itself, and it wants to become that wholeness, and it is that journey of wholeness, and that journey of and what do? As an individual, you become whole yourself. That's your only responsibility, is become whole in yourself. And then you will be teaching, as you do that, you will be teaching that to people around you, through your actions, through how you show up in the world, and through your atmosphere, the atmosphere of your own ecology within yourself. Your body emits vibration. People talk about vibes. I'm not really very, you know that I don't like using these kind of terms that are trendy terms in spirituality, because, I'm a graphic designer. I know about trends. I am somebody who I suppose lived in that world for a long time, and somebody who never wore designer clothes, because I knew it was an advertisement for a brand, So I don't like using conventional words around spirituality, apart from when I feel it is just, it is kind of connecting somebody to an understanding. So we'll say that, our vibe, our presence, our the atmosphere, the ecology of ourselves that we radiate out on an energetic level has a profound effect on reality. And I could go deeper into that as we go forward, but to become aware of that is really, really important, and I suppose we're getting to, I had made a note, and I thought it was a really great way of explaining it as something I had written a long time ago, and it says simplicity is calling a closeness to the essential personal. So the essential personal. So, our essentialness is a personal place, but it is joined to the collective. So to try to discover that and uncover that, what do we do? First of all, we want to be finished with our experience and our desires and our longings for those kind of ambitious, that ambitious life, that, wanting a bigger house, wanting, our desires of wanting to accumulate and wanting to, we want to be kind of disillusioned with that, tired of it, maybe depressed by it, anxious by it, or looking or searching for something that is, has more depth to it and more meaning to it, has more purpose to it, has more, the meaning of why we're here and what is it, so we need to bring ourselves into our essential personal. So how do we do that? We need to bring ourselves back into ourselves, and that is a process. So the process that I see, and I suppose from my process, my own process, I can only teach from what I've experienced, and that's what, who I am. I'm a person who loves to learn through doing. So I was always a very wild and just did things because I had to experience them, and I wanted to experience something firsthand. I wasn't really great at being told what to do, because if I wanted to experience something, I will do it. And I didn't, but thank God, I didn't spend long in those experiences, because I just wanted to get a taste, like a little taster of it, to see what it's like, and I let it go very quickly. So that's why I kind of moved through life quite fast and rapidly, because I wanted to experience all these things, but I didn't get stuck very long in one spot, So, and the process that I went through, I would break down into 7 stages. And within these 7 stages, there's many stages within those stages. Now, each person is born into this world with a different state, a different level of understanding, and a different consciousness level. Now, it's been interesting for me to learn through my life and to have experienced this, that age, actual physical age, in our body's age, has very little to do with the age of our consciousness. It's nothing to do with it. So you can have somebody at 80 years of age who's actually got the maturity of the immaturity of somebody, and you could have somebody who's 20 who's more spiritually mature than somebody who's 80. It depends on how they have kind of distilled their experiences, And I kind of in my head use that, I suppose because I'm from Ireland, I like to use, the levels of consciousness as kind of like alcohol. Actually, I don't drink myself, but that was another thing I let go of. But, you know, let's say that, you know, there's kind of like, you start off with, you know, the water, and then you have, you know, you might start on the shandy, and then it gets stronger, and you go into wine, and then you go into whiskey and vodka, and then the really potent stuff is actually not even on, it goes off the grid altogether, and it's like poaching. So it's like pure consciousness, and it's pure, like you one taste of that and you're gone. Excuse me for a second. Sorry about that, somebody came to the door. We got interrupted. But yeah, so I was saying about, you know, consciousness and poaching. So, you know, there is a potency to, and it has an effect on you on a cellular level when you find somebody who has a very high consciousness. And it's amazing that even online, or to read the teachings, or to absorb the presence or the energy of someone who has had, you know, deep experiences, or you can sense somehow on, you know, a deep level their consciousness. Actually, I experienced it. It was amazing, even for myself. My own experience was the first spiritual teacher that I had ever, I didn't even know what it was, when I had through the process that I went through. Nothing, I didn't know anything about spirituality. I had absolutely no idea. I'd let go of religion. I'd let go of all my desires to, you know, achieve anything in the world. I had let go of everything, and that was, I suppose, the state that people are trying to get to. And I was just, you know, I suppose in a discernment around life that kind of got me to that point, and I just had given up on needing anything to make me happy, you know, and I just decided that that was it. And then beauty started to arise, and I started to experience pure beauty, which what I call pure beauty is love and intelligence combined. And it's the presence of pure love and intelligence in one, and being able to feel that presence is divinity. It doesn't happen all the time, but you get pockets of it. But there was a period in my time where, in my life, where it was actually around my father-in-law's passing, that as I've learned now what that's called, it's called an opening. And I had no idea what was happening to me. I had no idea. And then the inner teachings started to happen, and they started to come internally inside me. And it was like that intuition that I had as a child and all the way through my life, but this became really potent and very direct and very as if I was on an inner course, you know, like this a little bit, you know, but it was really very hard to describe, but amazing, life-changing completely, and very challenging, very, very, very challenging, because I had no knowledge of anything to do with spirituality. And when I heard Eckhart Tolle speak, I just started to tingle, because I just felt, this is it. There was some feeling, I some resonance, and I just, you know, something was telling me that you're home. It was like as if my cells were all excited, and they were just buzzing all over my body, and I didn't even know what that went, you know. So it was a deep resonance with that. So there was a huge amount for me to learn from that point. And I had many teachers, you know, Eckhart Tolle resonated hugely with me in understanding about presence. But then, you know, Thomas Hubel is a German spiritual teacher. He really suited me to the ground because he's so precise. He's like a surgeon, you know, and he works with the Holocaust. He started off working around trauma and Holocaust victims, and he is absolutely amazing, you know. And then Dr. Shivali was fantastic. She helped me definitely, you know, uncover shadows I had around relationships with my kids, and helping me to see, you know, areas within myself that were kind of shadows from my experience as a child growing up. So they were three of my main go-tos in that process, you know, and I still would go back to them again and again, you know. And it's funny, as you progress and as you kind of become closer to yourself, you listen to the same recording and hear it differently, and that's a really brilliant sign that you're progressing, because you know what you're able to take in at one level is different to what you'll take in at another level, is what's different about taking in at another level again. So you know, in the course that I'm outlining, I would say that to, you know, to listen to it, to do the practices, to come to it, go through it, and then go back over it again and again and again, because as you need, and because like that you'll get more from it each time. And even for myself, when I am talking or teaching or learning or writing, often, you know, I have to go back myself and go, oh yeah, I actually said something there, or there might be a word there that I had never said before. I've described something in a way that I had never said before. And when I listen to myself, it helps me to embody it. So like, you know, it's like as if I'm iterating when I'm speaking in the present moment. I am incarnating another version of myself as I surrender to the moment of creation, which is happening through me. So then, you know, when I listen back to it, I can see the new version of myself has emerged. And then my body has to update on a kind of a deeper level to understand that now you are this new version of you, you know, that you have. So you kind of grow from creation. You know, creation is growing and then you're learning through it. So each time like you read or listen to any of these kind of teachings and you feel you've kind of moved forward, you know, it's always good. There is always going to be a pullback. So, you know, it's like the breath. You breathe out and you breathe in again. You breathe out, you breathe in again, like the waves on the sea. So there's a small, you know, like the waves come forward and then they go back, and then they come forward a little bit more and then they go back. So that is in the process, you know, that, you know, you'll feel you might have advanced, and then you go all excited and everything's fantastic and like this, but actually then there'll be a regression. And then you might be very tired and exhausted and, you know, become demoralized and feel like, you know, you're an imposter. All these kind of negative, all these kind of, you know, conditioning will come back, flooding back to you. You have to move forward again then. And then it's a letting go each time, you know, and that's part of the process. So be very, very kind of gentle with yourself and be very, very caring and loving around that, you know, and it's very normal. You could be, and this process of transformation is one that needs a lot of silence. It needs introspection. It needs meditation. It needs a lot of rest and sleep and, you know, self-care and self-love. And that is because you're transforming out of a suffering state into a flourishing state. And the course and the 7 levels are broken into, the first one is retreat. So I'll be talking about the inner retreat and the outer retreat. And what is the definition of a retreat? Is an act of moving back in withdrawing. So that will really cover in that first section. And within the section, I create kind of modules within each course section. We'll say subject to it. I would say maybe we'll call it steps, the first step maybe. And the second step is restoration. So the restoration of our inner and our outer. And this is the action of returning to a former place or state. So the way, the journey that I had taken was, so amazingly, visually and I suppose symbolically beautiful, was the renovation of an old Irish cottage. And this is where we'll be taking our imagery from and our words, and it's very much in keeping with the Irish disposition and our tone and our way of understanding the world, so number 3 is, it's the retreat into that old cottage, the restoration of it, the renovation of it, the renovation of our inner and our outer, and then which is the action of rebuilding. So we're rebuilding that cottage, and then it's the rejuvenation and of the inner and the outer, and this is how we begin to look better and feel better and younger and more vital. We have that rejuvenation, which is kind of bringing back the energy, and accessing our vital energy again, Then renewal, we start to emerge as a new version of ourselves. We start to become a new version. And actually, it's funny how the fear sometimes around that, but I found it's funny that, there's a massive fear of letting go of identity. How will I be seen in the world with this new version of myself? And it's funny how even Thomas Hubel talks about this. He was studying to be a doctor. I was actually in his middle of a very, very bright guy, brilliant. He's around my age now, and he was called in the middle of his studies to go and into this inner retreat, like myself, just kind of a calling. And he left his studies, and he ended up, now he's helping people all across the world with trauma. But he's created a course around inner science, and I thought it was amazing because, as he said himself, he thought he was moving away from who he was, but actually he was becoming more potent in himself, and he had the same disposition and the same love of science, and he mixed that with spirituality, and it became so powerful in the world. And he has done such tremendous healing. And what I've found myself is that, I can bring my understanding of identity and branding and brand creation and the kind of control around the inner creation of that identity and renewal and rejuvenation and iteration into my work. And I'm actually going to create I'm in the process of putting together a new company that's called Flourish by Design. And it's a design agency that's based around creating brands or for global goals around hitting the 12 UN objectives that we have for sustainability and in the world. So I'm trying to change the direction of when, you know, the business consciousness within the business community, you know, in branding and in identity. So not to be scared of that, not to be scared of that new level of yourself, the deepening of the areas within yourself that are already there. It's only just going to be an upgrade. So don't worry about that. And sometimes it takes a while for that to come clear to you. So, you know, trust is so massively important on this journey. And, you know, just let me make you feel at home in that do please trust, just trust the process, and that it is one that is going to bring fruit into your life, you know, definitely in every direction. It is challenging and completely annihilating of your old ways of living. And it is a process of, you know, of destruction as well as creation. So be prepared for that too. But the fruits are worth it, you know, they really are. So that is the renewal, stage 5. And then stage 6 is the blossoming. You know, you'll find that the levels, you know, you'll start to blossom from within, because when you've found that kind of home in yourself, you start, as your limited identity around yourself, those structures have kind of fallen away, and you know, you'll start to become more confident in yourself. And then, you know, the things that you have always wanted to do and you've always would have loved to have done, but those voices in your head that always told you that you shouldn't do this and you couldn't do that, and why wouldn't you do that, and, you know, look, what will he say about you, and what will she say about you, and all that kind of stuff, that just disappears. And you just don't put any heed on that whatsoever, and you begin to blossom, and these kind of new talents just come out of you like a spring, you know, like a well. You know, you just go and you're going to be refreshed. You know, that you just start to, you know, give of yourself. You know, you'll just start to blossom, and you'll start to you'll just start to talents that were there and that were covered over by, you know, it's like as if in a garden, you know, if you had rocks, if you're planting a garden, you put the seeds and you did the watering and everything, and then all of a sudden you realize there was lots of rocks on top of your little seedlings, and you went and you took all the rocks away and you watered it and you let the sun shine on it, and then what do? You do nothing. You're actually not doing anything. You're just creating the atmosphere for growth to happen, and then there's nothing to obstruct it. So you start to blossom, and you start, all those little saplings start to come up to the surface, and then maybe all this fresh rebirth starts to come. You start to blossom, you start to see, you know, yourself coming into a new version of who you thought you were. And then the 7th step, I would say, is the flourishing. You know, this blossoming takes on a more vigorous growth, and it's more because of, you know, life we know it grows exponentially. It's an exponential growth. So, you know, it's slow to begin, and then it grows and it blossoms, and then it flourishes, you know, because what happens is, you know, those talents, those things that you put into the world, those connections that you start to create, they start to have an effect on the atmosphere around you, as in you start to become a larger version of yourself. So, you know, you're not just yourself and your family and looking after yourself and your family. You're not just your immediate, neighbors. You're not just your village. You're not or your town. You become a larger kind of force in the world for good. You become a garden that's giving, abundantly. So then when you give abundantly, that kind of comes back to you. And it's kind of luxuriant and development of a kind of prosperity, as people say. But to me, I don't equate prosperity, abundance, flourishment, and flourishing with the material world, although that can happen. And I'm not saying that's not going to happen, but I'm saying that you will feel, it's a feeling, you will feel fully yourself, and you'll feel more, you'll feel rich within yourself. You'll feel that you're in that beautiful place of richness and wholeness, and you will still have obstacles and challenges that arise, but you will now have the tools. You'll have the new way of living. You'll have a new perspective. You'll have a new support system. You'll have a new version of yourself that is true to you. And when you're living from your truth, at least you know that when you leave this lifetime, that you will have done your best, for the time that was given to you, and that you will have, when you lay your head down on that pillow, that that you are contented, that you have come here and done what you came here to do, which is the very last line of the Rainbow Warrior. And that you've been that warrior, and you've done your best through thick and thin to try to move forward, and that your character and your pursuit of that is the inheritance that you will leave behind. The inheritance of money and wealth and possessions and material wealth is nothing. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. It means nothing. It can be gone in a generation. I know my own family, I had my great-great-grandfather, he was a merchant ship owner. They called him the merchant prince of Ireland. He had he had a massive fleet of ships, and he brought corn into Ireland during the famine times, and he had a huge life, just left a legacy beyond comprehension for one lifetime. And when it came to me, all of that was gone. That was all disappeared, because but his story still remained a complete inspiration in my life for the character of the man, and what he stood for and his values. And I think we are actually in the beginning of a dark age. We are in a time of transformation on the human level, beyond what's happened ever before. So we are in the kind of dark night of the soul when it comes to the evolution of humanity. So it's vitally important that we have people that are becoming self-aware and becoming becoming who they came here to be, because the truth is that you were born into this time for this very purpose, to be active and be in active contemplation on your day-to-day living and what you can give, not for today, but for 50 years time, for 100 years time, for 200 years time, for 300 years time. The impact that you can have on your line, your bloodline, on your family, on your community, on your nation, and what you're embodying as a citizen of Ireland is saying to the rest of the world as a beacon. We need to be, that spire in O'Connell Street, it means nothing unless we are lighting that spark at the top of that spire, and we are transcending it up to the sky, to the heavens, for all to see. And we've done fantastically well in that, in the progress of our country. But as a citizen of Ireland and a citizen of the world, it is our responsibility in this time to become who we are in truth. So I invite you on this quest of self-discovery, and I come with compassion and passion in equal measure, and I will do my very best in my limited capacity to guide you, and it's my honor and all my love. Caroline. Bye.